Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Great to see you all today. I'm going to be really brief. Welcome to the library. Today's program is sponsored by Gerald and Lori Ernst. We're very grateful for that support. If you haven't already, make sure that you do turn off or silence your cell phones. And we're going to go ahead and get started. My pleasure to introduce Chef Shannon Bush. She's been a plant-based chef for over 30 years. She's worked as an executive chef, as a head baker, a caterer, and a culinary instructor. And she can tell you more about this, but I believe she is soon to be an author, which is pretty exciting. So please help me welcome Chef Shannon Bush.
Thank you, TJ. Yes, it's true. The cookbook has been written. It is being edited and then just needs a couple more photos and it goes to print. Phew. The first of many. This first one is called Help, a Vegan's Coming to Dinner. So this it's the first of a series that I'm working on, and the books are based on what all of you ask me. I was a little slow to catch on, but I at one point realized that I'm hearing variations of the same questions over and over throughout the years. So I thought, why not take the most popular questions and base books on them? So this first book is for all of you that are not vegan. And you're here because you're curious, or perhaps someone in your circle is a vegan, and you never know what to do when, you're sharing a meal with them. So this first book, that's what it's all about. I just wanted to do a quick shout out. So those of you, who's been here before? Thank you. So those of you that have been here before know that I beg and plead with you to let me know when you make the recipes. And I'm always open for feedback too. And I especially get excited when you include a photo with the emails that you send me. But I wanted to give a special shout out to Cassie. Is Cassie here? Cassie? No? So after the last class, which was a class about soups, I got some wonderful emails from many of you. Some even included pictures of your masterpieces. But I wanted to give a special shout out to Cassie because she actually made all 3 of the recipes. So I'm very grateful. I really appreciate it. I really get excited about it. It makes my day. You have no idea. So keep the emails and photos coming. All right. So I'm actually going to start with the second recipe here today, the cornbread stuffing. Thanksgiving's coming. And the food that I make at Thanksgiving is some of my favorite food ever. And I wanted to share some recipes with you that I love. Today's class is about some of the side dishes. And the class next month will be the rest of the meal. So between the 2 classes, you'll get a complete Thanksgiving meal or holiday meal. So I've tried to design all the recipes. I know during the holidays you might have a house full of company or family. Time is short, life is hectic, so I've tried to design recipes and ideas that allow you to do many things ahead of time to make your life easier the day of. So one of the things with this cornbread recipe is I beg and plead with you to use real bread, not the stuff that you buy in the box that you just throw in a pan with water. Just buy a baguette, chop it up for your sourdough bread, and then the cornbread, make it, night before, a couple days before, whatever you like. But in following my own advice, I made this last night, and then I just left it uncovered. I want it to dry out a bit. So that's been sitting out all night. I bought a little sourdough baguette and chopped it up for the other bread. So I just wanted to show you that making some stuffing is easy, truly. So first thing I'm going to do is saute the veggies. And I'm going to use some vegan butter. This one happens to be the Trader Joe's store brand, which has a great flavor. I don't think, if you replaced your butter with this, I don't think anybody would know. The only thing with it is it comes in a block, and if you're like baking, using a recipe that calls for a specific amount, it's kind of nice to buy a brand that has the little pre-wrap bars so you can easily get your right measurement. So I'm going to put a very generous amount of butter in the pan. And then I'm going to saute the veggies. I know in the instructions that I wrote down for you, I said to do the mushrooms after you've let the celery and onions go for a bit, but I wasn't thinking when I prepped and I mixed it all together, so there you go. It's all going to be at the same time. So one of the things I love, well, first of all, anybody Southern? I know people from the South, they call it dressing. I call it stuffing. So stuffing, dressing. When you make it, I think it needs lots of things that will give it moisture. So that's why I'm loading this up with veggies. I have the celery, the sweet onion, and mushroom. But I'm also going to add some tart green apple. So, you make this ahead and you let it sit. You don't want it to be dried out by the time it gets to your dinner table. So if you've added these nice things that produce a little bit of moisture as it sits, then you're going to have a nice moist stuffing, dressing, whatever you want to call it. So I realized that I didn't plan this as well as I could have when I decided to split the meal between two different classes. So, I love to feed the library staff here because they're so good to me. But today they're getting a heaping bowl of mashed potatoes, but the gravy's in the next class. So I've made a mental note for next time. Yeah, it's a medium-high. I'd actually like to turn it up to high, but I think I get feedback on my microphone if I do. Let's try it and let's see what happens. Let me add a little more apple. So far, so good. There's a variety of things. A lot of them use coconut oil, which is not great for us. It's one of the few plants that you should avoid if you have cholesterol issues. It doesn't have cholesterol, but it has saturated fat. So most of them have coconut oil in them. Can't taste it though. It's not coconutty. There's another brand that I like to use. It has a very neutral flavor. It's called, I can never remember if it's Earth Best or Earth Balance. Thank you. One is baby food and one is vegan butter. So if you end up in the baby food aisle, not that one. I can't remember. Yes, it does. Yeah, someone mentioned the Miyoko's brand. I would say for just flavor, like if you're serving bread and butter with a meal, that one probably has the nicest flavor, just standalone flavor. No, okay, thank you. Oh, good, good, good. We have a couple more seats at the table that are still open. Why not? I wish I could make a big feast and feed all of you while you're here, but there is just not enough time to make that much food. You look like hungry people. What's that? I'm afraid not. This is for the staff here. And I don't want them to miss out because this is their lunch. Wouldn't want them to go hungry. All right, almost there. So we're going to add some broth next. And you can use the pre-made broth, but those of you that have been here before know that I like to use these bouillon cubes because a lot of times, well, let me just say I've never found a broth that I thought had great flavor. This way you can fine-tune it, you can make it stronger if you want, or lighter, whatever the case may be. But with the broth, it's ready-made. There's, it is what it is. I have actually have some of that in my refrigerator, and it's not my favorite. It's okay, but it's very dark, very heavy, rather than like a nice, broad, flavorful bouillon.
I use it for soups, but I use it sparingly.
Yeah, it's very dark, very rich. And it's okay, and I'm grateful that they're making a vegan option, but these are my favorite. And some lucky person's going to go home with some today. I think I brought 2 extra.
Are those from Trader Joe's? Or?
No, Trader Joe's doesn't sell these. Sometimes I order them online, but I think Albertsons has them, and I know Whole Foods has them. Sprouts as well, yeah. It's called Not Chicken. The name kind of says it all, I guess. They have a vegetable flavored one that's reduced sodium. It does, yeah. But you don't have to use the full cube. So you can adjust it so that it's, you don't get too much salt. All right, so I'm going to add some water. These vegetables are going to be slightly more crunchy than they would be if we had all day. But I will try and get this done. I don't want a repeat of the last class where we were here all night. I'm just going to add some granulated onion to the mix because everything's better with a little granulated onion. And then some black pepper. So I believe I gave you a range for the broth or water that you're adding. And the reason I can't give you an exact amount is I don't know how dry your bread is going to be. If it's really dry, it's going to need more water, more moisture. So just know that you might need to make adjustments. If your bread is super fresh, it's more moist, and it's not going to need as much water. So just play with it. It's a very forgiving recipe. But if you do have to add a significant amount more water or moisture, make sure you add a little bit more seasoning too, so you don't end up with bland stuffing. All right, so we're going to serve this in these nice bowls that the library provided. Just trying to make sure that my bouillon cubes have broken up and dissolved. You can do that ahead of time before you add it if you want. I don't see them, so I think we're good. So I'm going to start off by adding the sourdough bread first. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's much sturdier. The cornbread is going to fall apart really quickly. So we'll start with this. And if anybody's wondering why the cornbread dressing / stuffing isn't all cornbread, that's why. I'm using the sourdough bread to give it some body. Otherwise, the cornbread just breaks down and it would just be mush. Yeah. So I'm just eyeballing this, and I can see that I'm going to need some more water. I'm going to add a little more seasoning. If you don't like sourdough bread, regular baguette is fine. My book that's coming out has a strata recipe in it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with stratas. It's basically a breakfast casserole bake, but it's you use cubed bread in it. And in the book, I suggest using half rye bread and half sourdough. So you can mix it up. Just add what you like. So this cornbread, we'll see how well this comes out of the pan. Not too bad. So if you choose to assemble this the day of, like several hours ahead of time, and you want to heat it back up in the oven with, say, the mashed potatoes and any other goodies that you have at your meal, add a little bit of extra moisture, because if it's going to sit a while and then go back in and bake, it's going to need a little extra moisture.
Is the cornmeal you're using coarse or fine?
This one is actually a medium, somewhere in the middle. And that's personal preference. I just have that on hand because it's multi-purpose. But if you prefer the really coarse ground, that's a nice touch as well. All right, I'd love to sit down and have a bite, but I guess we'll go on to the next recipe. Let me get this in the bowl.
Is there any cornbread you can buy that you do?
So it's tricky to find without milk and eggs. And it sort of annoys me because those things don't add anything to the dish or to the cornbread. So it's like, why waste your money? Let's see if I can dump this without making a huge mess. No promises for those of you in the front row. There we go. I got lucky, let's be honest. Yeah, this cast iron pot is great until you have to pick it up. But cornbread's still somewhat intact. I tried to stir it minimally. And I can see all the great things in there, like the apple and the mushroom. But I think it needs just a little smidge of green for serving it. So I'm just going to throw a little parsley on top. And we'll call it good. Something like that. For those of you coming to my house for Thanksgiving dinner, you'll see this again. Thank you. Okay, there we go. Thank you. I know it's a really simple dish to have in a class, but it's my hope that any of you that still make stuffing with the box will consider trying making it fresh this year. I'm hoping that was inspirational. I'm sorry? Oh, no question? All right, so this next dish, I'll go back to the first page. So this took a lot of brainstorming before I got to this recipe. For years, I've made sort of a version of the traditional sweet potatoes that you see on most people's table at Thanksgiving. Brown sugar, cinnamon, baked and bubbly. But I wanted something savory this year. So I just kept brainstorming, and then something reminded me of something that my grandmother used to make when I was little. And she used to make something called green beans and spätzle. Does anybody know what spätzle is? It's a little German pasta bit. So I thought, why not use sweet potatoes and do that? So, a lot of trial and error, and I figured out a way that I'm happy with it. And I also thought, why not? It'd be fun to do for the class, because it also shows you that you can easily make your own pasta at home. So, all you need to do is pre-cook a big sweet potato. And this is much easier to do if you have a food processor. Whoops, almost had a jumper. I meant to say on the recipe, don't get too worried about what size is a large sweet potato. This recipe is really forgiving, so just grab a big sweet potato and go, and it'll all work out, I promise. So first thing I'm going to do is just put the cooked, peeled sweet potato in the food processor. I'm going to let this mash it up for me. Oh, well, you'll find out next month if you're back. Our Thanksgiving entree is in the next class with the gravy that should have been in this class. No, not doing that. It's going to be a surprise. If any of you would like to appreciate my scraper as a gift from a friend, and I absolutely love it. Okay, so sweet potato, some all-purpose flour, and what does it call for? A cup and a half? Okay. I'm going to add a cup at a time. And we'll see how it goes. Not very well. You could. There we go. So I opted to not even put salt in this recipe. So for those of you eating less salt, but because it is for the holidays and this is optional, I'm going to add a little bit of nutmeg. Not a lot, just a little bit. Whoops. This is 1 cup so far. You can do this by hand, but why would you if you don't have to? All right. And basically mix it until you get a big ball that's formed in there. And that's good enough. So the secret to having a nice, tender result with your, I'm calling it gnocchi for the recipe's sake, but in my mind I'm calling it spätzle. But so lost my train of thought. Where was I? Thank you. What would I do without you guys? So the secret is not to overprocess it. If you mess with it a lot, your end result will be tougher. So the less you mess with it, the better. So I'm going to put it out on my board now using my handy little spatula. Maybe I'll leave that there. And I'm going to get some water heating real quick before I cut this out. Let's see. I feel so disorganized. I'm sorry. I'm going to get some water going because it needs to be boiling for cooking. And it's up to you whether or not you want to salt the water. Okay, so back to this. You're going to need some flour on the side, so keep your flour handy. And this is fresh pasta. It's so easy. There's a chunk of sweet potato I missed. So I'm just going to divide it into strips. And just use your hands to make like a rope. Maybe 8 inches long or so. Make sure you have enough flour on your board. And then I'm just going to use my hands to flatten it out. And I'm going to make just a long, skinny rectangle. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And you can actually, if you're an overachiever, you could make these any shape that you'd like. But I'm going to do like a thick little matchstick. If you had some miniature cookie cutters, you could cut out little shapes. You could really get creative if you wanted to. So I'm making it nice and thin, less than a 1/4 inch, I'd say. And then I'm just going to take my knife and cut thin little strips, like so. And as soon as the water boils, we'll cook them. So let me get the rest of these cut. If your knife starts sticking, just dip it in your flour and you'll be good to go. But this is for our holiday meal, but it's also how you make pasta. So hopefully you can take this basic recipe and do some different things with it. There are a huge variety of sweet potatoes out there. And I chose, for this recipe's purpose, the most orange potatoes I could find, so that there's a nice contrast in color when they're mixed with the green beans. You could use either one for this recipe. Basically, for how you use them and everything, same difference. I know there's probably a potato expert out there that would disagree with me, but for all practical purposes, I basically view them the same. And now there's so many types of Japanese sweet potatoes that are offered with the sweet potatoes. And those are great. The nutritional content is fabulous, but none of them have this rich color. So I chose these potatoes for the color. So watched pot never boils, right? So there are different methods for cooking gnocchi, and my personal preference is to boil it and fry it. But I didn't give you those instructions, I don't think, in this recipe because it's not always easy. If you buy the store-bought gnocchi that's been dried, it's really easy. But when you're working with fresh pasta, it's really easy to end up with 90% of your pasta stuck to the bottom of the pan. So if you feel up for the challenge, go for it. Send me a picture. Otherwise, just tossing these in after the beans are mostly cooked and making sure that the butter and the seasonings coat the pasta, and I think you'll love it. But if you want to try the more advanced route, you can try frying them. And do it separately. Don't do it with the green beans. That'll increase your chances of success. Come on.
So you boil them and then fry them?
Yes. So one of the tricks, if you decide to try and fry them, because it really does add a nice taste and a little bit of a crunch to the texture, after you boil them, try and get them as dry as possible. the wetter they are, the more they will stick to the bottom of your pan, regardless of how much oil or butter you're starting with. So if you as you remove them from the pot, put them on something that'll drain, and then I would further probably take a dish towel or a paper towel and just try and kind of get rid of any excess moisture that you see. And that'll help a lot. I haven't. Will you send me a picture? Send me a picture. I'm curious. Let me know how it went. So I need something to put these in. Okay, the water is boiling. So I'm just going to drop these little strands in here. And they are so easy to cook because when you drop them in, they sink to the bottom. And when they're done, they immediately float to the surface. So there's no question of, is it cooked? Is it ready? Just really easy. Yeah. Delicious little worms. So I just brought a slotted spoon with me. That's the easiest way to fish them out when they're ready. And I already have, that's so cool. I already have some that are floating, so off they come. See how fast that is? It's amazing. So I really wanted to make sure I had time to make this recipe because I didn't want you to think it was going to be like really difficult and time consuming. It's not. And I didn't overwork the dough, so they're going to be tender and flavorful. You certainly could. No, they're delicious like this. There's lots of ways to eat it. Some people will take like this and just toss in some butter and sage and garlic and onion. It's delicious.
Cream?
Yep, you could add a little cream.
Have you substituted the flour for semolina?
Yeah, the recipe's super forgiving. Like I said, don't stress about what size your potato needs to be. Just if your dough's too wet, just add a little more flour a bit at a time. You were asking about pasta maker attachments, like. Yeah, you could make something fancy with it if you have, like, I have a KitchenAid with the attachments for the pasta. Yeah, you can do that. It's certainly sturdy enough to make anything, a ravioli or anything you'd like. And you don't have to use a sweet potato. A Yukon Gold potato would be wonderful in here. So super fast. Can someone tell me how I'm doing on time?
We've got plenty of
I like your attitude. 2:40? Is that what I... Okay, thank you. We are good. I'm trying really hard, I swear. Okay, so what am I going to do with that after class? So now I'm going to start the green beans. I'm going to start these off in a little bit of avocado oil. It's always my oil of choice. Couple reasons. The flavor's neutral, so it doesn't overpower anything you use it with. You can use it for baking sweet things or savory. And it has a very, very high burn point, so it's an excellent choice for frying. Avocado oil, yeah. A lot of people use olive oil, but that's not considered a good choice for frying anymore. This is considered a better option health-wise. Not that oil is health food, but sometimes it's degrees of something being a little bit better or a little less bad. So, yeah, the avocado oil, a couple of things. One, I used it for many, many years, and I just got tired of it. I got tired of everything I put it with tasting like olive oil. It takes over. This is neutral. I don't taste oil when I use it with anything. And grapeseed oil is okay. It does have a high burn point. I used to use grapeseed oil. It was a lot less expensive than avocado oil, but the price of avocado oil has come down because I think the demand has gone up. But I think the avocado oil is a little more in favor in the health world. But grapeseed oil is a decent alternative. I think I pointed out in the recipe that I really like to use the French green beans. The haricots, sorry for my pronunciation, but they're a little thinner, and they tend to be more tender and less stringy than the traditional green beans. So if you can find these, I think these are a great option. These, really nice. They are pre-trimmed and washed from Trader Joe's. I'll leave the package on the counter there. So I'm just going to let those cook a bit. I want to cook them until they are lightly browned in places and slightly tender. But I don't want to cook them to the point where if you lifted one up, it would fall over. That's too much. Yes, you can freeze the dough, and you can also make it a couple of days ahead of time and just wrap it in like wax paper or something and keep it in the refrigerator. So who's going to be here next month? Oh, thank you. I'm not sure. I don't have it memorized. 14th, maybe? 15th? Something. trying to decide if I'm going to make pumpkin pie or bourbon chocolate pecan pie. Well, you didn't do that for pumpkin, so I guess that decides it. That's funny. That was loud and clear. Wow, I like pumpkin pie, but thank you for asking. I know you've heard this before, but I think it'll be out before the next class. Yeah, I think I said that about this class, though. But I can tell you it's completely written, done. It's being edited, and then I know that there are a few places where I'm going to insert some more photos. But the bones of it are done. Possibly. Well, have you ever emailed me a picture of the food that you made at home? Kidding. Yes. They are in the book, and many more. The book has 5 different suggested menus for holiday or special occasion meals, and recipes, of course. But I have 2 what I'm calling like a holiday dinner meals, and these recipes are part of that. And the bourbon chocolate pecan pie is in there as well. I had a lot of fun experimenting and creating that recipe because I got to make it a few different times. All right, these green beans are getting brown, and they're starting to soften a smidge. So I'm going to add some seasoning. First thing I'm going to do is add some of the vegan butter. I'm adding a decent amount because it's not just the green beans that I'm coating, it's also got to coat the gnocchi. And then I want to get some granulated onion. All this steam is going to plug up my little dispenser. Some black pepper, generous amount. A little salt. Keep in mind I did not salt those.
Do you prefer the dry onion as you put over the fresh onion?
It just depends what I'm making. Sometimes I like to use both. If I want to make sure that the whole, like every bite is infused with the flavor, then I use the granulated. Fresh onion is great too, but it just depends what I'm making. Sorry, it's not a very helpful answer. So, bunch of What did I do with my wooden spoon? Oh, it was in the shadow of my thing here. Okay. So, generous amount of garlic. I hope everybody here likes garlic. Okay. Thank goodness. Then we can be friends. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat off before my garlic burns. But the butter is now nice and fragrant with the garlic and the other seasonings. And I'm going to drop these guys in there and toss them around so that they get coated with the butter. Right? The colors are good, right? So you can have your grandma's recipe of sweet potatoes with the marshmallows on top and the what else is in that classic? Lots of sugar, yeah. Or you can try something new this time and have a savory. Oh, there's one stuck on there. Come on now. So we'll put these on the platter. You can. So try and get as much moisture off of it as you can. And then I recommend tossing it with a little bit of like avocado oil or vegan butter. Just that'll help it keep it from sticking quite so much. These are going to look a little lost on this big platter, but imagine a big, full amount. And I'll take the stem out. They look puny in there. I'm going to put them in the bowl because they look so... Is that okay? You guys forgive me? Okay. All right. All right. Imagine a smaller platter, if you will. Thank you. How am I doing on time?
It is 2:53.
Okay, I'll talk fast. So, the last dish are the mashed potatoes. And I put this recipe in the book, and I think I called it decadent holiday potatoes or something like that. But I make no claims about these being healthy. These are once-a-year potatoes. They're loaded with yummy things. It has vegan sour cream, vegan cream cheese, vegan butter. And then the topping are balsamic glazed onions. And I was going to make some today just to make the onions to show you how fast and easy they are, but I don't think I have quite enough time. Baked in the oven until the edge is just slightly brown. And then right before you serve it, just add a little bit of green, a little bit of chopped parsley or some chives, just something to give it a little color. But these are the once-a-year potatoes. So with the potatoes, do your best not to substitute like a russet potato or a red potato. They just don't have the flavor or the texture. They're mealy, they're not as nutritious. Golden potatoes. Yukon Gold is a brand, or like a potato brand, registered brand. But there are regular gold potatoes if you don't see Yukon Gold. But I really recommend the yellow potatoes. So, no, I won't do the onions. I don't want to make us late. I told myself I wouldn't keep you guys late today. But there's some here if you want a closer look, or if anybody has any questions about the onions. They're super easy to make, and they're not just for the potatoes. They're great on burgers and sandwiches and pasta and homemade pizza. And you just cook them. If you want to do a lighter, healthier version, just cook them in a little bit of water until they get translucent. And then sprinkle them with some salt and pepper and a tiny little smidge of sugar and then some balsamic vinegar. And the sugar is necessary because that will thicken and make it a little syrupy so that the vinegar sticks to the onions. But they are tangy, delicious. They go on anything. So I highly encourage you to try them. I like the Kite Hill brand, and Follow Your Heart makes one that's okay. There's a brand called Tofuti that's nice for baking. There's a couple that I see out everywhere. They have a very strong coconut flavor, so I'm not a fan. Yeah, for those of you that are experimenting with trying more and more plant-based products, if you taste one and you don't like it, please keep trying. There are some really bad ones out there, and there are some delicious ones. So I do encourage you to, don't stop at one. Try another brand. So, any questions about?
What time is dinner?
Not sure. I'll get back with you. So. Red would be wonderful. Yeah. Red are quite sharp usually when they're raw, but when you cook them, they have a wonderful flavor.
Did you use that Vidalia brand?
No, it wasn't Vidalia. It was whatever Trader Joe's had this morning. Yeah. Yeah.
I do have a question.
Sure.
For decadent mashed potatoes, even though, like you said, the Yukons are best.
Yeah.
Not so good for kidney disease potatoes. Could you use sweet potato or yam for that? Just
Sure. Why not?
mix it up.
Why not?
They have less potassium.
Yeah. Why not? Send me a picture. So if you guys look on the last page of your recipe little booklet, who has a star on their last page? Come on up. So I have some bouillon. I have some pumpkin pie pumpkins that I hope you'll bake and turn into pumpkins. And if you want to make the gnocchi, I have 2 bags of sweet potatoes. So take your pick.
It smells so good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. You got a star on your winner? Yeah, help yourself. I don't need to see it. I believe you.